The Early Learning Board's mission is to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL office for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry.
Thank you, Steve. We'll keep this in mind as we do our work and deliberations today. Let me first do a roll call to ensure that we have a quorum. Justina?
Here.
Erin Henderson?
Here.
Iolani?
Aloha, I'm here.
Thank you. Megan McCorston?
I'm here.
Thank you. Ben Nakri?
I'm here.
May O?
Here.
Here. I am here. Ali?
Here.
Thank you. Mari?
Here.
Carrie?
Here.
Melody?
Aloha, I'm here.
Aloha. Dana Luca?
Sorry, here.
Thank you. Michelle Mahoney is absent. Steve Shaw?
Here.
Thank you. And Keiko Nita from Matt Shim?
I'm here.
Thank you. So we do have a quorum, we can proceed. Sorry, we have a few technical difficulties, which we hope we have addressed. But we have two new members to welcome today. One is Megan McCorston, who is currently the CEO of Seagull Schools and will be assuming this center-based provider seat. Megan, welcome. Would you share a little bit about your background and experience and what drew you to the board?
Sure. Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, for joining you on the board. A little bit about my background. I grew up here and I've almost exclusively worked in public education over the years, for the last 20 years, overseeing pre-K through 12 charter schools, 3 schools under my management and leadership. And then more recently, I joined Seagull Schools, which is, of course, a private nonprofit providing early education and kapuna care for almost 1,000 families around Oahu. So, you know, it's my pleasure to bring both public and private experience, I guess, to this role, and hope that I can contribute to the conversation and some of the strategic goals.
We welcome you and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It is really important to have the center-based provider's voice heard in this, in our conversations, and we look forward to working with you and getting to know you a little bit better. Although I do know you fairly well at this point.
I'm excited to work with you again.
Yes, delighted to have you with us.
Thank
May O also joins us, and May is currently the support manager for Family Hui Hawaii, and she is assuming the parent representative seat. May, would you share a little bit about yourself and what's attracted you to joining us on the Early Learning Board?
Hi, R. Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting and honor to be part of the board, and I truly look forward to working with you all, supporting EOEL and bringing the best to our youngest children here in Hawaii. I have a young one myself. I have a 6-year-old, and for quite a number of years, I did a lot of direct service. I was in the classroom, preschool classrooms for preschool and infant toddler classrooms for over 14 years. And I also managed a child care food program for daycare home providers for about 8 years and recently switched to family who we working direct services with a lot of families and preschool teachers and coaching preschool teachers and family childcare providers as well. So so happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, May. We're delighted that you joined us, and obviously you have the most important qualification, a young child, that will, I'm sure, inform how you look at the work we all do. We're delighted that you'll share your expertise with us. I'd like to go around the full board and ask board members if they would introduce themselves to May and Megan, sharing where they currently are employed and also what constituent group or sector that they represent. And because I can't see everybody on the board at the moment, I'm just going to call out names, and if you would please just share a bit once I invite you to do so. And I'm going alphabetically, Justina, so you're at the head of the class.
Always at the head of the class by marriage. Hi, I'm Justina Acevedo Cross, and I'm currently at the Hawaii Community Foundation, and so I sit in the philanthropic representative seat for one more year.
And we're much pleased that we have you for another year. Erin, if you would be next, please.
Aloha, I'm Erin Henderson Lacerdo. I'm currently serving as Executive Director at the Association for Infant Mental Health, and I am here as a home visiting representative.
Thank you, Erin. Iolani.
Aloha, May and Megan. I'm Ku'iulani Laiha. I am the CEO for Ahapuna Leo, and I am representing the Hawaiian Medium education pathway on the board. Mahalo nui.
Thank you, Kariulani. Ben Naki.
Hi, Megan and May. Ben Naki, I'm from Parents and Children Together. I oversee the early Head Start programming that we do on Oahu and Hawaii Island, and I am the Head Start provider representative to ELB, for ELB.
Okay. Wai Ale.
Aloha, May. Nice to meet you. And hi, Megan. I am Wai'ale'ale Sarsona VP at Kamehameha Schools, and I oversee our preschools as well as our early learning strategies, both in the public and charter areas.
Okay, thank you. Mari.
Yes. I'm Megan, and I'm Mari Uehara. I'm a pediatrician by training, and I'm here from American Academy of Pediatrics, Hawaii chapter. And then each one has the pediatrician, each family and child has a pediatrician. So I think we work together for the transition.
Thank you, Mari. Carrie.
Aloha, May. Aloha, Megan. I'm lead for network design and innovation for the Early Childhood Action Strategy, which is a government, non-government collaborative that works on the system of care for our youngest keiki. I'm also chair for the Hawaii Early Intervention Coordinating Council, and so I represent the Hawaii Early Intervention Coordinating Council on the board. Welcome.
Thanks, Carrie. Melody.
Aloha, I'm Melody Vega. I'm the Director of Early Childhood Educational Programs for Keikioka Aina Family Learning Centers. And I represent Family Child Interaction Learning Programs on the Early Learning Board. Welcome.
Thank you, Mel. Dana Luca.
Hi, Dana Luca, Department of Human Services Child Care Regulation Program Office, representing Director Betts. And I know both of you. Nice to see you guys. And I oversee the licensing and quality programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Steve Schatz.
Hi, Stephen Schatz. I'm the Executive Director at Hawaii P20 Partnerships for Education. We do education coordination from early ed all the way through the workforce. And I'm also representing the University of Hawaii system.
Thanks, Steve. Keiko.
Hi, I'm Keiko Nita. I'm over in the Department of Health. I am here for Matt Shim, who's our Family Health Services Division Chief, and he also represents our Director of Health.
And I'm Bob Peters. I represent the Executive Director for the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools. And I'm retired. I think I was going to try to figure out where do I work. Retired head of Honolulu School after 30 years, having been head there. We have one member missing today, Rochelle Mahoy. She is representative of the Department of Education and is the designee for the superintendent. She is a CAS and will be joining us, I'm sure, next meeting, and you'll have a chance to meet her at that point. So you get a sense of the variety of people on the board and the diversity and the richness of the expertise, which adds to our conversations as we continue this work moving forward. Two announcements today before we get into the second item on the agenda. One is that Yuko is not able to be with us today. She is ill, and Jordana has agreed to step in as her representative at this meeting. Hopefully, Yuko will be back on the job soon. And the second is that we will definitely have an executive session toward the end of the meeting. We will ask everyone to leave the room except for board members during the executive session. Once it's concluded, we'll reopen the meeting and conclude the last few items on the agenda. But that's the way the day looks at this point. The second item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes. So I would entertain a motion to approve the June 9th, 2022 minutes as presented.
This is Carrie, so moved.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote on approval of the minutes as presented. Justina?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Ke'Ialani?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
May? May?
Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye. By Ali?
Aye.
Mari?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Melody?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved as circulated. We can move to item 3, which is time for public comment at the beginning of the meeting. There's a 2-minute time limit per speaker to address items identified on the agenda. Is there any public comment to be shared? Anything in the chat, Jordana? But nobody for the public for comment. All right, hearing no public comment, there will be another opportunity to offer public comment toward the end of the meeting. We can move to item number 4, which is our primary presentation for the day. And I'm going to ask Wayne if he would introduce our guest who has agreed to join us and share a bit about HB 2000, which is now Act 257.
Yes.
Okay, Wayne.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce to the board members today Mr. Chad Keone-Farias, who is the Executive Director of the School Facilities Authority. For background, the School Facilities Authority, I believe, was created by Act 72 in the 2020 session, and it was amended to actually rename it or rebrand it as the School Facilities Authority, as it's called now in Act 217, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021. Of interest or of relevance to the board today is that The legislature just passed this session, House Bill 2000, which is now Act 257 that was signed by the governor last week. So last Thursday, July 7, 2022, which appropriates to the School Facilities Authority $200 million for this current fiscal year, which began at the beginning of the month and continues to next year, June 30, 2023, with an option or an ability to roll the unexpended monies over one additional fiscal year to the end of 2024, which is June 30, 2024. So there's Keone is online, I believe. So take it from there.
Hello, Lane. Aloha, everyone. Mahalo for having me here today. So glad to see so many familiar faces. It's almost a throwback in time for me to the early days of EOEL and my participation as a young principal with much more hair. I don't think I even had hair then, but anyway, it takes me back to much earlier and younger days. I'm super excited to be here presenting, or at least answering some of your questions and speaking to you all. Thank you, Lane, for introducing the School Facilities Authority, now so named under Act 217, originally started off as an agency in Act 72 with the primary mission of building public schools, building for the Department of Education, essentially. I was lucky enough to be selected by Governor Ige last year, early in the year, as the SFA was formed, and sat on the SFA board for about 9 months before recognizing some of the maybe shortcomings of our work, having not kept up with the funding and not having funding last year. So having no staff, 5 members of the board, Alan Oshima, Harold Edwards, Bettina Maynard, Candy Suiso, and myself, now replaced by the former CAS of from Maui, Lindsay Ball. So I threw my name in the hat around March of this year because we did not have an ED, and felt that with my ties, and because the SFA sits administratively attached to the Department of Education, and because we missed both our deadlines, reporting to the ledge for the transfer or the sharing of positions to get some of our work done in 2021 and 2022, before the 2022 ledge, threw my name in, see if I could handle the gunfire from the Senate and get approval if my background and my talent and my education would be enough for them. So I was confirmed on May 5th, 2022, and began as the executive director, having left my CAS job immediately, my complex area superintendent job, which was most recently in the Ka'ukiaupahua complex area. I also served as the CAS for Hilo and Waikea, and did both simultaneously for 21 months at one time. So left my job immediately at that point and started on being the ED for the SFA. Was not aware of HB 2000 making its way up, not in the form it's at, and was very surprised when it made it through the ledge in the way it did, with the appropriation that it did, giving me both butterflies and hope, because in my 15 years as an educator, fighting through the trials of trying to grow pre-K in my communities, living in Kealakehe, Kona, and in Waiakeuka, Hilo, where there was a bit of access, but maybe a false sense of access, because not where I live, right? There wasn't much access. So, and then in the communities I served in Puna, in Ka'u, especially because of the distances, despite having a few really, really amazing partners, access was the issue because of transportation. And then, of course, in Pahoa, we had a whole lot of love because of the volcanic activity and the philanthropy that was thrown that way. And then there was access for a whole different issue. One just being trust in the system, trust in us as educators, and then parents really not wanting to give up their babies. So I've seen a few different models where there's just different issues for access. So anyway, sorry, I'll apologize now for now and the next 6 years of my tenure. I will forever be a teacher. It's my favorite job. It's what I want to return to at some time, and I just can't take off that hat. But I do sit here and I appreciated being a vice principal very little, a principal very much, and then the senior serving CAS for a while. And so it's really hard for me to take my educator hat off, though I promise you I will try to stay as the facilities guy and focus on the facilities that we need to finally build for our keiki who deserve it, our youngest keiki. And then, you know, a lot of people have been talking about this $200 million in the second half of our biennium with an agency, an authority. People still think of us as a department or agency. It's just an authority, one person, just myself, as an impossible task. I think if we, all of you, myself, and a lot of the philanthropy that has reached out, I mean, HCF in starting a preschool for every keiki fund with Micah and Mitch and HKL Castle, Terry George, just jumping out front going, let's get Keone some help, make sure this works. So with everybody's help pulling together, I think we can keep the plate spinning, so to speak, and hit what at least some of the house presentations that I went to where Sylvia talked about $200 million, not as a one-time spend, but every year for the next 10 years, whatever that means. And then using that, obviously, and starting to focus and highlight that facilities is one issue. And then the other areas of access that I talked about, being trust and transportation and all of that. And then our workforce, right? I struggle to hire as a principal. I substituted sometimes in a classroom that was very uncomfortable with being 230 pounds and 6'1" with preschoolers. So I'm here as the SFA executive director to work with our privates, with our partners, with the DOE, obviously as having the 4,000 acres spread out throughout the state. Some of them, some of those acreage highly utilized, and others that we've highlighted as being very underutilized. I'm here as the ED to try to shine some light on the heat maps that have been circulated and the preschool deserts that have been talked about. And I hope to partner. I hope to partner alongside all of you all. And I must say, I've met with a whole bunch of you already that have reached out to say, how can we help? And so thank you. We will tell you exactly how we're going to need help. So currently the SFA is working really hard to stand ourselves up as an authority with the recognition of the Department of Education as our administrative, as the department that we're administratively attached to, and try to define those roles. So it's been a bit of a struggle, as you all know, EOEL that you oversee, you govern, went through that same growing pains a number of years ago. And so I hope to learn. I've been alongside Yuko for a bit, and with the help of Lane, reaching out to Lane a bit to figure out, and Jordana and the rest of the staff, I see you all here, and Colleen and such, but to see how we can speed up at least our growth and not waste the precious time that we have relating to Act 257. I will say the SFA's primary goal before this money, and this is the first monies, hopefully, EDN 450 for us to try out, for us to test, if you will, the authority, has jumped to the front of the list. Up until this bill, it was primarily in building of K-12 schools, taking over some of the projects, hopefully, that are stuck, trying to get the second half of Kihei built, and looking to the schools that this legislative session were highlighted in Central Maui and in East Kapolei. Hopefully East Kapolei jumping to the front. So, and then of course, building of teacher housing, figuring out how we can reuse our lands, repurpose them, or purchase to build some teacher housing. And that's pretty much what I got. Got some questions or?
And we can open it up for questions. Keone, thank you for joining us today. And, we all admire your courage, frankly, in jumping in and moving this forward. Have the success during the volcano.
And I know I'm just a picky bitch.
Are we? What's happening sound-wise? Are we okay? Okay. I guess we're okay now. Anyway, we admire the work that you've already done, and I'm really excited to partner with you. We'll open it up to the board for any questions for Keone at this point, keeping in mind that one of the key things he just said is they are just standing up the authority. So there probably are a lot of issues to still address. Questions from board members? Who has one? Carrie? Carrie?
Aloha, Keone. Hi. We talked about this, but I thought it's something that the board has been discussing in the past. And I'm just wondering if you have more clarity around whether or not the 200 million can be used for both our community-based providers and preschools and our public preschools.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. No, I don't have any like Attorney General opinion on that of the specific question that asked. I will invite people to make those asks of me, send them directly to me so I can try to formalize that for an opinion. With that said, knowing Act 72 the way I do, and I'm not an attorney, so it's a real struggle for me. It really is a real struggle for me in interpreting this. So I'm going to need a lot of help, especially when it comes to trying to cross-reference that with the state constitution and things that are outside of this act, because I've never stumbled upon that. With that said, 257 talks about increasing the seats for our pre-Ks. It's pretty general. I think there's some reference in there to 3- and 4-year-olds, etc. And the intention is to maybe work its way backwards to birth. I'm not going to make that, what is the word? As a disqualifier or a qualifier, right? Right now, we're trying to get to the intended 200 million, which should equate to 4,000 to whatever seats, 200 classrooms, etc. I know that the low-hanging fruit that we've been referring to is with the Department of Education and the current 30+ classrooms and the 20 or so queued up for next year. That's nowhere near the 200 million that we're looking at, right? So we're trying to keep that door open if we can. And then I also have stumbled upon the possibility of building for the different counties, and then the counties would go out to who they sublease to or who they partner with, right? We talked a lot about Seagull, as somebody here from Seagull, and the impact that that will have on Honolulu County because of the parking structure renovation. So again, trying to stay in my lane and not be the politician in front of it, those are heavy on my mind. And when I see anytime that we're losing seats, it's super heavy on my heart and I panic. So I would say to that, we're not at this point discounting any project that people can put in front of us, because and here's another thing that I've learned: when we highlight something and there is a discrepancy or a disallowance in one of our laws, it creates more interest to lobby next legislature for a change in those laws. Or what I've seen over the last few weeks, people step up. We have big players in this game that have stepped up to want to help the SFA get started. And I'm hoping that that will highlight some of the other issues we have, and people will step up to try to make that change too. That's why every time I speak of this, I talk about our workforce issue, similar to our teacher issue across the state for K-12. I'm not sure what category put it in, with special ed or math, or where the shortage is. But I would say at this point, we don't want to discount any viable project that can serve the public good. Saying that, I know there's language in the Constitution that disallows some of this spending. This is, for everyone here on the call, this money Why it's such a quick spend on biennium spend is because this is cash, which lends itself to a little different rules than if we were doing this with bond funding. But knowing that going forward, if this recession that they talk about is happening, if there's going to be a slowing down of revenues in the state, etc., this may be something we have to go forward with bonds, and the rules may change. But for now, I'm saying let's swing for the fence. It's going to be frustrating as it has been for me in this first 6 or 7 weeks, having been told no, not that one. Oh no, not there. I'm not a no can. I've never been taught to be a no can kind of guy, but with the can spend of 200 million, I haven't explored the how cans. Man, I'm confusing myself. That how can possibility when I've hit a roadblock. But I promise you, as a player in this game and as a team member here, we're gonna try to get everyone done, Carrie.
Great, thanks, Keone. I think my question's coming from a place of wanting to make sure we spend all the money and look where we have leverage points. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ben, I see you're in the chat, in the queue.
Yeah. Hi, Keone. Just a quick question. You know, the funding, is it earmarked? And I apologize because this will be a naive question. Is the funding to repair existing, like, underutilized space, or is it to build like new space, buildings, bringing in portable classrooms? Is anything on the table? Is that what you're thinking right now?
Yeah. Okay, Ben. Good question. So let me be broad. Sorry again if I confuse you guys. So asked for clarification, but so yes to all. Act 72, which created the SFA, has specific language in building for public schools and in building new facilities. It's pretty clear. I've also learned, which bummed me out, because anyway, let me go for it. And I've quickly learned that the newer acts supersede the older acts, et cetera, et cetera. And my board, I named the 5 board members. They're amazing. I mean, amazing people. They've been in the game a long time. They have encouraged me to not put myself in that, not to stay in that lane at the present moment, using the wording in Act 257 that talks about refurbishing these classrooms. So both, if schools have underutilized space, not many of them just say, oh yeah, I got plenty extra space, come. But if we can find that, then we would want to. Those are the easier projects to do because we're not displacing students. Portables, I think that, so having lived through the lava flow that was coming to Keonepoko Elementary and having had to build a school in as quick a time as we could, I believe in 20 plus days, we stood up 21 classrooms in the parking lot at Cal High School. New electricity. I know that there was some governor's declaration and presidential declaration that allowed for us to suspend some of the DOH rules with wastewater and all of that stuff. So I get, but I saw it happen, right? I saw portables come in and I saw kids happy, enjoying. I saw teachers in air-conditioned classrooms that didn't have them before. So yes, portables would be a solution. Again, we would need the DOE to step up and step in, as those TMKs and that authority hasn't been transferred to the SFA yet. Not like physically, maybe the law says it's all transferred to the SFA, but we don't have maps or keys or even authority to be on that campus. I found out that we needed legal opinion for me to become the chief procurement officer of the SFA. We're working on that now. So many pukas, and I just don't want to bring them all up and alarm you guys. I'm just not that, but know that we are working hard on all of it. So Ben, to answer your question, yes, we would like to provide new, and then of course the ultimate goal of the SFA and the members of the board for years has been in traveling to other states that have highlighted education facilities well, have built appropriate classrooms for age appropriate students, have built 21st century schools, have built schools with place and with identity, et cetera, et cetera. So the sweet spot would be if we could highlight 1 or 2 or 5 areas of need and build out amazing pre-K facilities that are not single classrooms on each campus, like 4, 5, 6 classroom, robust, actual PLCs and you know, and time for teacher collaboration, etc. So that would be the hope. In year one, can we do that? Probably not. But can we get a project started enough to get the extension and get it out in 2024? I mean, I think so.
Thank you, Keone.
So Keone, do I hear you arguing for a community hub type setting? So that it's wraparound services as well, that you would be seeking and serving the whole child and families, probably both?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so yeah, so Bob, you know, I mean, we spent so much time with this when we talk about adding a classroom here, or we spent so much time talking about jumping in and increasing one classroom in this community, and then we lose the private provider, or the school kicks out the current program, and then that fails and we lose. But we've also learned that especially for pre-K, well, maybe not. For all our kids, the providers, our partners in DOH and DHS and all of that, it just goes along with it. I love what I see when I used to get to visit Lina Puni and seeing all those services kind of in one area. That I want that in Ka'u, right? Or I wanted that in Molokai, etc. So yeah, so that's on our mind as well. We did visit the gosh, what's the construction company? The guys that are redoing the KPT, the low-rise houses, and what they're trying to do. So we're going to watch closely what they're doing there and see if we can engage a little bit and learn and or help out.
Yeah, I also wanted to double check my understanding. At this point, I realize these things have not been spelled out by the AG, but is there the possibility that private providers could lease spaces that the SFA either built or refurbished?
So currently there are those programs that exist where there's a private provider on a DOE campus or on a county facility, etc. Seeing that, and probably having to really fine tune that ask or use the wording, find the correct wording, like building for, and maybe Lane can help us with that with the state constitution part, but building for a different, like the county's a different municipality structure, and then they go and figure out whatever that lease things are. At least, and so we are talking. I mean, we got to talk with Kauai County and Honolulu, and I spent some time with Mayor Roth's people on Hawaii Island a month ago, and they haven't formally made an ask of the SFA for us to take forward, but they're looking. I mean, they're looking for ways to do that too, and I know their attorneys know the state constitution and probably better. And they probably have sifted through Act 257 more than, with better eyes.
Thank you, Karen. Keiko, I see you're in the queue.
Thank you. So thank you, Keone. This sounds really exciting, and your enthusiasm is really palpable. So yay. And I heard Bob's cue that you're first trying to really just stand up the authority, and you've only been in there for a short time. But I'm wondering what your timeline is looking at, and which will help us think how we can help with next steps or how we can help think this through.
Yeah. So I don't have a timeline. I just, knowing that there's 11 months and a week or so to do this, to put a timeline out would discount so many projects. I think, but to not have some reasonable time frame in my mind would be reckless. It just wouldn't be prudent. So right now it appears the low-hanging fruit, what aligns with Act 72 or 217, whichever, the one that created SFA, and with 257 would be our DOE campuses, would be our charter campuses that the SFA, at least by statute, has authority over or owns, if you will. I think those would have the least problems in terms of spending some of our monies going forward. That's not to say it's only least problems in one category, right? There's problems in other ways too, like preserving the relationship with the DOE. right? It's our parent department. It's our administratively attached department. We have to play nicely. EOEL has figured that out too, just in trying to find spaces on campuses, right? And so that means helping Superintendent Hayashi, his designee, Dr. Mahoy, etc., formulate maybe perhaps a more formal strategy on the DOE part around pre-K and pre-K facilities. Up until this point, we've looked at offering where there was need, at least in my experience, offering where there was need, and then kind of coming alongside principals and helping build that want, right? Because if the principal just said we didn't have space, we don't have space, especially in the time of pandemic when everybody's searching for 3 feet or 6 feet or whatever happens when we take off all masks, August 1st, if that happens. So yeah, so that would be the projects that we would try to swing at first and get some money out. That's not saying that's tier 1 and then the next are tier 2. It's just the ones that probably need the least legal opinion. At the same time, we'll be chasing at, there are some stale projects, some stalled projects, not stale, stalled projects in the DOE that the department had already looked at for multi-generational use, multi-purpose use. So we'd like to take a look at those properties as well. And there's a few in the queue. I believe the 3 or 4 projects that were brought up in Act 155 a few years ago brought angst to people because it talked about moving schools or consolidating and things of that nature. I'm not here to bring anybody angst, but I just want to be real. If we're not using a property and we're not using it in a correct way or to the best of its potential, then we really should talk about it, right? No matter what the name is and what kind of angst it brings. So we'd like to do some of those. We'd like to start on some of those projects. Maybe we can't complete those, but we can take over the TMK or purchase properties near or around that for the future. And then of course, the 3 counties that we've talked to, we only haven't talked to Maui County so far. I believe that will change once the focus on the election and stuff changes. But so that would probably be the next group that we talk with and see how we can help. We've even talked with UH around some of their projects they've had around housing and childcare and preschool, and we'd love to be a player in that space as well, just because there's just so much rich. It's just education all the way around. So, and then obviously we want to work with the different agencies and even some of the privates to make sure that we are not taking steps backwards should our facilities not open in time and put people out of the communities, and then we service less kids.
Megan?
Thanks, Keone. So nice to meet you. I'm Megan with Siegel. I just had a question for you about, is there going to be a formal process that you'll be sharing with members of the community if they're interested in submitting a proposal for your consideration?
So I don't have one now, but yes, obviously there's no way. So I just, it's a quick spend. It is a very quick spend. It's going to be very hard to do the traditional transparent public comment period, public protest period, etc. So, but that's not to say we're not going to do it, right? Those projects may be stalled a little bit. And so to not have a process, at least to let people be participants in the activity, in the ask, wouldn't be right. I'm hoping the Department of Education helps me establish positions that should have been established a while ago. Not their fault, might be SFA's fault, might be mine, but that they help me establish those positions so we can start to formalize that. Until then, I would say put whatever you have on paper. So, I mean, I know of Siegel, and it caught my attention, obviously, because Mayor brought it up, and then it's been in the news. I'm glad that it's been good news in terms of staying open or having some reprieve for a year. But other than that, I would not have known. I've been out of the pre-K game for a number of years.
Yeah, I also wonder about the public schools too, and charter schools, and how they all might, be submitting a proposal to you. It's almost like it's a large system. So really curious to know how that's going to roll out, and understand that you have very little time to do it. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Anyone else have a question for Keone before we let him go free? Hmm? Oh, Aaron.
Hi, aloha, Keone. I just have a quick question, and it's more probably down the line asking, but I know that, you know, this is under the purview, I guess, or authority of the administratively attached, excuse me, to the DOE and will be on DOE sites. So I was curious to know if there's been discussion or thoughts around ensuring that the classrooms that are either renovated or created are developmentally appropriate for the early childhood arena, or if they will be kind of more like traditional DOE type classrooms that might be for taller children and things like that. So just kind of wondering if there's any update on that kind of a situation.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. Yes, obviously, yes, I've been I was a principal and CAS for 16 years, focused most, and my career, unlike Superintendent Hayashi, on the upper end of high school academies and such, my passion has always been on the youngest ones, especially before third grade. So yes, we've seen some amazing classrooms built age appropriate, and still within the traditional DOE environment. So we have a lot of work, right? Obviously the new facility, 1 or 2 that we build, we want it to spotlight how it should be done, everything, soup to nuts, right? But most of these classrooms are in the traditional setting. We threw Band-Aids here and there. I remember sitting with my custodians, taking the screws off, trying to lower the chairs. Not possible to do with the toilet. You can't just lower a toilet, and you can't go in and just change them when you're a principal. So yes, we'd want to do that, and that's not hard to do, right? When we look at the 30+ EOEL classrooms, some are done well, some are slapped together, some are in the portables, and some are in the nicer environment. But many of them are far from the cafeteria, or right in the 4th and 5th grade pod, because that's the room that was free because they got rid of this inclusion class or whatever. So I mean, we'd like to try to highlight that, like these classrooms should be in an area where children have their own playground equipment, and where it's safer for them to be 3 and 4 year olds and not be around 10 and 12 year olds. So all of that. With that said, Act 257 comes as a bit of a surprise to the SFA. One, because we haven't had the staff, so now we got to work harder, and we're gonna because we cherish this opportunity. 2, because we're planning the last year and a half to take over projects and build new facilities, and now we're in the refurbishing and R&M game. So we're shifting a little bit, and we're gonna have to seek some advice on that. But yeah, going forward, we want to reside within that DOE structure. Like, I mean, this is a hard, no internet, not no internet, no space with provided internet so far from the state. That's not an excuse. We'll get there. It's not a priority because I can get my own. Not having a email or calendar tenant yet within the state. Those things take time. By the time I get all that, this opportunity is gone. So we're literally trying to build the office and the plane and fly it. Yeah. So yeah, but to your question, yes, everything's gotta be intentionally. I think we used to use the word DITS, deliberate, intentional, targeted, and strategic. And so, yeah, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. And I'm not going to say wrong. We did the best we could for the last 10, 11 years, but we just threw it all together wherever we could. And now we have some money, so let's go forward and try to do it right.
Thank you. Mahalo.
I see no other questions in the chat. Is that correct? Keone, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. I think we all will be energized from listening to it today. And you can have the last word.
Yeah, I just want to say mahalo, you guys, for continuing to do this work outside of my role as ED. I've been a huge fan of how hard it is to change the system, how hard it is to talk about something as a need and then go and actually take time and energy away from one thing to do that. So your work here, I'm a huge fan. I hope I bring a lot of energy. I'll continue to. I'm glad to do this work. Please reach me at my DOE, my old DOE email for now. They're trying to keep me alive on there as long as they can until the AG says they can't. And then when not, I will make sure Yuko and Lane know my personal email address. I'm hoping that we move over straight from K-12 into a sfa.gov tenant, and I'm hoping it's soon, and I'll share it with all of you. My phone number, my cell phone is the Department of Ed's phone still, and you guys can get my number from Yuko, or a bunch of you have it. And I look forward to this. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. We hope you'll come back periodically and update us on how things are going, and to pursue the partnership that you said would benefit from all of us working together toward your objectives. Good luck, and we'll wait to hear more. Thank you again. Aloha. Okay. We'll move to item number 5, which is the updates from the Executive Office on Early Learning. Jordana, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start off with a few of our legislative updates. So on the document that was disseminated, I did list some of the bills that we were tracking in the last session that have been enacted. So I'll just point a few of those out. So HB 986 and HB 987, which were actually bills introduced at the beginning of the last biennium, relating to newborn hearing screening and the hearing and vision program statute to increase the early identification of children with hearing or vision loss, were enacted on June 16th. So they are Act 36 and Act 37. SB 3110, this was introduced through the admin package. It renames the Preschool Grant Program Special Fund the Child Care Grant Program Special Fund, and it authorizes the special fund to be used to give grants to child care facilities. So the name change actually opens up the possibility to administer grants to more than just preschool programs. This was enacted on June 27th, is Act 128. And then as Keone mentioned earlier, HB 2000, which appropriated the $200 million to the SFA, was enacted on the 7th of this month, is Act 257. And then just real quick, we are working on our biennium requests for the next session. So we are developing our budget and legislative requests in anticipation for that. So we will be providing a presentation at the next month ELB meeting. So I just wanted to give a heads up to ELB members that we'll be preparing that information for you folks to review next month. Any questions? And I believe Alohi is on. Alohi, do you have anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I have a short update. Thank you, Jordana. Aloha, everyone. Just to introduce myself first to some of the new board members, I am Alohi Lani Mayaba. You can call me Alohi. I'm a program specialist with the Executive Office on Early Learning, and I focus on our early childhood state plan. So overall for updates, I did want to share that the PDGB 5 renewal grant funding opportunity has been forecasted. So we have a little bit more information. The official announcement hasn't been shared yet. However, it is expected to be made in September, where we can open up the application, which will be due in November, and awards will be announced by December at the end of this year. Hawaii is eligible for this opportunity, and so EOEL is monitoring this announcement and plans to hire at least a grant writer and put together a coordinating team with our various partners in government agencies and community to figure out for administration and implementation and submit an application for this year. I do have a description of the grant in our written ELB update, so please look to that if you're looking for a little bit more description of what this grant will be focusing on. There's still very little information, and we're looking for the official announcement to really know where the PDGB 5 renewal grant will be focusing on and how we can support our system with this opportunity. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Chris, do you have any updates? I can't hear you, Chris.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay, I was using earphone and my mic. So anyway, I just wanted to say welcome to Megan. I've not met her formally yet, but hope to do so soon. And I do know May, so happy to have you on board, May. I work in the office as the Head Start State Collaboration Director, and so I work with our Head Start and Early Head Start grantees here in Hawaii. And my updates are usually centered around either Head Start activities or specific work that I do as the collab director. So as you can see in the report, I did share a little bit about some summer programming opportunities that some of our grantees offered their kiddos transitioning to kindergarten next fall. And we have been and continue to actively recruit for kiddos birth to 5 for our early Head Start, as well as our Head Start preschool program. This, for the past 2 years, Office of Head Start has allowed for a waiver of not necessarily meeting full funded enrollment because of COVID, but come this September, the central office will be monitoring and tracking full enrollment status of the grantees, and the expectation is that all comprehensive services are delivered in person this fall. So programs are kind of scrambling to meet funded enrollment, and which is challenging because in order to run your programs, you have to have staff. And then there's, of course, this huge staffing shortage right now, not just with Head Start and Early Head Start, but in the childcare field in general. So there's a number of different barriers that are preventing full enrollment across the nation in terms of Head Start and Early Head Start programs. The other thing I just wanted to share, and Ben's going to share more about this during member updates, is that the association and the collab office have finalized and published an Early Head Start public policy agenda, which we hope will help to elevate both Early Head Start as well as the infant toddler care sector in Hawaii to raise issues around challenges as well as opportunities and recommendations that we hope to put forward with the help of some of our early childhood advocacy partners. And so we will be sharing this information with you all after today, and are beginning to disseminate our 2 companion documents out to both state and federal and local partners. And we really encourage you all to kind of help champion the cause and help us move all of this good work forward. So I'll leave the rest of the information to Ben when he reports out. Thanks so much.
And then just a couple more. So the Early Childhood Educator Stipend Program, this was established in the 2021 leg session, enacted through Act 210. So it's a program that would provide funds upfront to eligible students in the UH system who are taking early childhood education coursework. So we have been working with, so this program will be done in collaboration with the University of Hawaii. So we have executed the memorandum of agreement, and implementation has begun for this upcoming school year. So we are hopeful that stipends will be available to students in the fall, but we will keep the board posted on that progress. And then thanks to the funds that we were able to maintain throughout the last few years, despite COVID, we were able to contract for 2 FCIL programs on Nanakuli Elementary School and Kailua Elementary School for this upcoming school year. So the work and execution of that has begun.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Jeff? All right. Any questions regarding the report on the EOEL updates for Jordana? I don't see anything in the chat. I'm assuming, and I don't see anyone here with questions. I'm assuming that we're clear on the presentation. And thank you, Jordana, for stepping in today. We appreciate the extra effort. We'll move to the subcommittee reports for this meeting. We have two subcommittees who have brief reports to share. The strategic implementation update. And Ben, would you share with us a bit about what that committee's been up to?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Bob. So we had our most recent meeting this past Monday, and most of the discussion was first around timeline and really looking at SCR 217 and the roadmap that we need to get to the legislature 20 days before it opens. And so we have a timeline that we're kind of working with, which looks like we need to get something approved at the December meeting. And so working backwards, we're hoping we can have a draft probably around at the October meeting. But that which then leaves us with a very short period of time to develop the roadmap and the contents or the scope of what we need to report on. Due to the vagueness of SCR 217, the rest of the discussion we had on Monday, and we're going to have another meeting this next week Monday, is really around looking at what are those elements that need to be included in the roadmap. We had some preliminary discussion this past Monday, which we'll pick up on this next week Monday. We kind of identified possible areas around data collection, providing updates on data collection, site enrichment and expansion, workforce enrichment and expansion, program quality, family engagement, and then one more, a Hawaiian medium. So those are not finite, but those were really our talking points at this last meeting, was to really start to identify what is it that needs to be included in the roadmap. And we're also going to need assistance with this, because we do need to make sure we engage stakeholders in that conversation. And so our next meeting, like I said, is next week Monday. We're a committee that's probably going to be meeting a lot more regularly in between early learning board meetings, because we know we have some tight deadlines to meet and a lot of work to do. So and so we're going to continue that work. I don't know if Bob or anybody from the committee, I'm not sure if I missed anything. That's the gist of where we're at, but we know we have a lot of work cut out for us moving forward.
I think you captured it, Ben. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Ben about the work of the Strategic Implementation Subcommittee? Keep in mind that this subcommittee has a broader view than the concurrent resolution work. But right now, the immediacy and the urgency of beginning to get that report together and mapped out is going to be the primary and the priority. But we're not going to lose sight of the fact that the strategic implementation plan and the state plan need to be considered moving forward as well. Anyone from the committee have anything to add? I see no questions in the chat. Anyone have anything in our in-person group to ask or add? No, then we'll move on to the report from the Capacity and Resources Subcommittee. Erin, you said you had a brief report to share today.
Yes, thank you. It will be brief. We just wanted to share out that our subcommittee has been working really diligently in the past year to determine how best to support EUEL around our charter, which is to really support the efforts outside of the public pre-K and to help realize that statutory obligation for the entire continuum of early childhood. So we just wanted to share that we'll be in this next year a lot more intentional around spreading information with Early Learning Board around the efforts outside of the public pre-K system, as well as engaging the board in the conversation around this work. An example of something we have been looking at our most recent meeting includes helping to have an annual orientation to this Hawaii Early Childhood State Plan, so that the Early Learning Board can be reminded as well as realigned on a consistent basis, I guess. with all of the efforts that are going on. We're taking a look at how the EOEL, in discussion with EOEL, of course, with building capacity outside of that, in addition to the public pre-K work that has been going on very quickly. So I also wanted to mahalo Sherilyn Shinoki for being the co-chair for this committee for many years. As her term has ended with the Early Learning Board, she has been so wonderfully steering this committee's work. So in that vein, we are looking for a new co-chair. So I did want to extend that opportunity to the Early Learning Board. If there's anyone else who might be interested in co-chairing this committee, please do let myself or Bob know. And that's kind of all for now.
Any comments or questions, observations for Erin in the subcommittee? Erin, thank you for continuing in the Sherilyn co-convener role. And we will, if we don't have a volunteer, probably put a little pressure on a few people to see if they would be willing to join and serve the opportunity. Erin said it very nicely, the opportunity to serve as co-convener with her. Thank you, Erin. All right. We have no other subcommittee reports at this particular time, but we do have an update from Lane and the work that he's been doing. So Lane, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I've since the last meeting, I've met and along with UCO, the State Public Charter School Commission staff regarding ways in which the ELB and the EOEL can, I guess, coordinate and work with the Charter School Commission to increase the availability of opportunities for children aged 5 and under in the state. So one of the things that came up during our discussion with the Charter School Commission was making them aware, if they weren't already, with the opportunity that was provided by House Bill 2000, which is now Act 257, which made available the $200 million to direct towards expanding pre-K access to eligible children of the state. And during that initial meeting, at least, the Charter School Commission indicated that we may have 2 schools that may be ready in the near future to present some expansion plans for the SFA to consider, and that we will maintain contact with the Charter School Commission to see how we can coordinate our work together as efficiently as possible or effectively as possible. And so another thing that we did was we reached out to the Work Hawaii Division of the City and County of Honolulu Department of Community Services to discuss other options that might be available to supplement existing workforce expansion that is being pursued in the early learning field right now. And one of the things that the Work Hawaii Division did mention to us is that the city has available to it through the U.S. Department of Labor grants that are made available to the city and county or to different counties, that the Work Hawaii Division has this program where they do offer paid internships, which offer introductory opportunities for people or for private businesses that engage with the Work Hawaii Division, so that they partner with private businesses that sign up with the Work Hawaii Division to support entry-level internships with people coming into the field. So they work with the private employers to set up what the parameters that the private employers are looking for in terms of workforce assistance, and then they kind of partner and do the hiring and training with them. So it's in essence a cross between an apprenticeship and just a paid internship, but it does, I believe they told us that it supports up to maybe 20 to 30 hours a week at a rate that's a little bit above maybe a minimum wage. So pretty soon that's going to be about $18, I believe. So that's one of the things that we're kind of exploring to see if there are opportunities for the early learning sector to maybe take advantage or participate in that to create some opportunities and interests so that we can see, you know, if people get interested and maybe take their careers in the early learning field in the future, and then, you know, fold into the apprenticeship programs being developed with the University of Hawaii community colleges, and, you know, going and feeding into the university system, either Chaminade and or the University of Hawaii system. So that's another thing. And then, of course, continuing to work with the SFA with respect to standing themselves up and helping them to expand the Act 257 funding. So the items to be explored in the future, like Ben had mentioned, there is that SCR 217 roadmap that has to be presented to the legislature by 20 days before the next session, which begins on the third Wednesday in January, which I believe this year is going to be January 18th, 2023. So 20 days before that roughly puts you at the end, you know, right between Christmas and New Year's of this year. So as Ben mentioned, the timeline is kind of working backwards from that. So the full board will have the draft approved that will be transmitted. So, you know, working back and allowing time for, you know, review, amendments, comments, you know, an ability to kind of reflect and have an imprint on the draft itself. So that's another thing that's continued to be worked on. So, and that's about it.
Thank you, Lane. Questions or comments for Lane?
So, yeah, I do. I have just a clarification. Lane, are those the internships that were just appropriated in this last legislative session?
I don't believe so. I think that they have separate money available from the Department of Labor as part of their work, you know, workforce.
The U.S. Department of Labor?
U.S. Department of Labor. That goes through to the State Department of Labor, which is then farmed out and, you know, allocated to all of the county workforce agencies. So that's another separate line item of appropriated monies that up to this point, I think it's available to every single employer, but as far as we know, that hasn't been really a thought or an opportunity that's been really a focus of, at least in the early learning space. So it's more targeted towards the entry level.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sending me a note about that, that would be appreciated. We're sort of working on, in general, work-based learning opportunities for students, including but not limited to internships and apprenticeships. So I'm just kind of curious. I'm not sure I understand the landscape well. So whatever you could provide would be appreciated.
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Any other comments, questions? I don't see anything. Oh, Justin.
For, I guess, both the update on Act 46 and also the work getting ready around 257, have you identified any resources that ELEL needs to do that work more efficiently, or the role that you guys play, like you have what you need now for the conversations? Or
I think at this point, he has a lot of standing up to do. So the thing that's most helpful, I think, is to pre-position everybody for making the ask, or to have a vision of, you know, what they want. And then I think the important part for us is to help him develop a screening process, like Megan was mentioning, as to how to understand or organize all of the various ideas that are coming in such a way that it's not only transparent, but has some of the features and the protections that come with the transparency, but knowing full well that it's more of like an interpretive jazz exercise at this point, just because of the short time frame that you're not going to be able to, you know, put the full chapter 92, 92F, Uniform Information Practices Act, kind of full transparency things that go with all state agencies. It's going to be somewhat in between, but having some of those protections in place. But at this point, if there's only 2 proposals that come in, that it seems that won't be as much of a problem as if there's 200. So it just depends upon how many ideas people come up with. So at this point, I'm not sure if anybody has anything. So that's kind of why it's a difficult question to answer.
Maybe at the stage at which the scope of the kind of requests that are coming in,
right?
Then however we can help, to your point, move that forward. I'm interested to know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is it's almost an iterative process, right? So once a few more weeks pass, then you'll have a greater clarity as to what the next 2 weeks after that would be. So probably by the next meeting, it will have a better sense of what the landscape is in terms of how many projects or how many proposals are out there floating, in which case it'll make it easier to answer that question.
Did you have a follow-up, Justina? Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see anything. Thank you, Lane. We'll move to item 7.8, which is another opportunity for public comment with the same parameters as the first opportunity. Is there any comment from the public to be offered? So please indicate in the chat. I don't see anything. Jordana, no. All right, there appears to be no public comment at this point. We need to get ready for the executive session. And Jordana, I'm going to ask you to share with everyone what the process, or Kevin, one of the two, the process will be, and then we'll take a 5-minute break to get set up so that we can begin the executive session.
Okay, so I'm going to be placing all non-ELB board members into the waiting room. So since only ELB members are allowed, also people here in the physical space, if you're not a board member, you do have to leave. So I believe someone will be closing the doors. So I'll be doing that in the interim. Once the executive session is done, Kevin will let everyone back into the room from the waiting room to resume the closing of the meeting.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions about the process? It's pretty much what we have done before, just for people who are new. We have a 5-minute time period. We'll say around 5:03. We will try to resume, assuming everybody has been placed at that point. Please feel free to get up and walk around if you're here, or use the facilities.
Board Chair, this is Mike Gazuma.
Yeah, Mike?
I could be wrong, but I think we might need to have a motion to move to executive session.
Oh, I forgot that. You're right. It's been a while since I've done this. May I have a motion to move to executive session?
This is why Ale so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Bob. This is Melody.
Okay, thank you. Let me do a quick tally. Justina?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Kayalani?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Murray?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Carrie?
Aye.
Melody?
Aye.
Okay, the motion has passed. We will move into executive session. Thank you, Mike, for that reminder. 5 minutes, and we will launch the executive session. We're all set? Okay, we will resume the public portion of the meeting. The one item remaining on the agenda is to review the agenda outcomes and any additional announcements, and then our closing comments from Carrie. The outcomes that I have pulled out of the meeting today related to our better understanding of the SFA and Act 257 and Keone's request for all of us to join in partnership to work together toward the realization of the Act 257 expenditures. Although he indicated that the PGGB5 renewal grant information should be available in September when we will want to pursue a grant appeal at that point. We have also indicated that through the work of the strategic implementation plan, thanks to the efforts of Wayne, that we have a timeline for the report to the legislature with a roadmap on implementation of Act 46-210, and that report is going to be outlined by Wayne as we move forward. Those are the key outcomes along with the conversations we had during the executive session today. Anybody have any other key outcome that I missed? Hearing none. Carrie, you have some good words for us to close this meeting out with.
Sure. So today's words are from Amanda Gorman. We do not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it, we find the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. You knew I was going to ask you for that, right? Thanks so much. Amanda Gorman is quite the philosopher, I must admit, in her views of the world. So thank you, everyone, for a productive meeting. Lots of information shared and lots of good discussion. We had things to consider and work on as we continue to grow as a board. I'm delighted to have our new members and to have our full house today. I'm sorry Rochelle wasn't able to join us, but delighted that all of the rest of you were able to make this meeting. So we shall see you in the month. Stay healthy. Remember that it's summer and there should be a little time to relax. That's a key piece of that. Aloha, everyone.